Hi, everyone. Tony LoRe. As you've read, I'm the head appraiser at the Provident Loan Society. So that's been my current gig for the last 16 years is jewelry appraising, although my career in appraising goes back a lot further than that. I have experience many years in retail, wholesale, and most recently in the porn industry. I find appraising to be an interesting aspect of our business, assigning values to things rather than having to sell things has kind of changed my life and given me an opportunity to use my knowledge for other things instead of trying to foist jewelry on some unsuspecting people. But anyway, it comes across as I'm a jewelry expert. But I'm going to say I'm more like Mona Lisa Vito in My Cousin Vinny. My expertise is in general jewelry knowledge, whether it be watches or gemstones, a little bit of jewelry history, some antiques. So kind of jewelry jack of all trades. I'm not going to tell you that I'm an expert in any particular field, but there's a question that comes up. If I can't answer it, I'll find out for you. But today I wanted to touch on a couple of things. I get a lot of questions from, well, let me start off by saying one of my loves is watches. I've collected some over the years, not a lot of the high-end stuff, although I've always pined for that stuff, so I'm interested in it. By high-end stuff, meaning Patek Philippe's and Vacherons and Constantines and that kind of thing. But we're mostly exposed to Rolexes, Cartiers, which is the luxury watches, of course. But I get a lot of questions from mostly from men who want to know how to take care of their watches and what they do and how to keep them going and how to service them and one of the questions that comes up is about watch winders. Now, let me explain. Let me go back up a little bit. There are a couple of different kinds of watches, watch movements, and how watches are run. Quartz watches, battery-operated watches, as you know, everybody's gone to the jewelry store to have their watch battery changed. So those are electrically powered watches. And there are watches that are called mechanical watches, and those are two different varieties. One is what you might have been used to from your father from the years back, where you wind it. It has a spring. You wind it up just like a wind-up toy, and it runs for a certain period of time until it runs out, and you have to wind it again. The third type is what we call self-winding, or more commonly known as automatic watches. So they have a mechanism that keeps winding the watch as long as you're wearing it. It has a mechanical rotor that as you move, it spins around and it winds the watch. Some watches are made nowadays with clear backs where you can actually see this function happening. You can see the rotor spinning around and winding your watch. And the theory is that as long as you wear it, it's going to stay wound as long as you're moving it. And even if you put it down, it's winding a spring, and the spring will stay wound for 36 to 48 hours, let's say, depending on how, the quality of the movement, the type of movement that it is. So theoretically, you could take it off every night. And when you put it back on in the morning, it's going to have the correct time, and you're wearing it. It's going to start winding again. So the question arises is that when you don't wear your watch, if you're someone like me that has more than one watch, and you switch watches off. Today, as a matter of fact, I'm wearing blue, so I'm wearing my blue band watch. So I switch off, and men with multiple watches, or even women with multiple watches, will switch off depending on the fashion of the day or how they feel, which watch they feel like wearing that day. But of course, if you have an automatic watch or self-winding watch and you don't wear it for a couple of days, when you go to pick it back up, it's not on time, and you have to reset the time and the date if you're the kind of person that needs to know the date. Okay, that's really. So they came out years ago with these what they call watch winders, where there are these either battery powered, well, both actually, battery powered and plug-in boxes that give a slow movement to your watch. so that instead of you just putting the watch in your dresser, you put your automatic watch in this mechanical box, and it will slowly keep your watch wound. Okay, so that when you pick it up, it's still on time. Assuming, of course, we haven't changed daylight savings time or anything, we're just going to have to pick it up and change it anyway. So people call me with this and say, hey, I got my Rolex and I have my other watch, and every time I'm going to have to reset my Rolex. What do you think of these watch winders? Well, they have a good and bad. The good is, yes, if you put it on the watch winder, the watch is going to be on time. So that's really, to me, is the only good, unless, it may be almost mandatory if you have one of these ultra expensive watches with astronomical complications where it's the moon, the stars, and the sun, and if you put it down, it's going to take you a PhD to have it reset, or you're going to bring it back to the place that sold it to you to have it reset. So on a watch like that, it's almost mandatory to have a watch winder so that it'll keep these functions up to date, so to speak. But otherwise, I usually explain it as, well, in the wintertime, you warm your car up in the morning. So why wouldn't you just leave it in the garage running until it's, when you get up in the morning, it's there and it's already nice and warm for you. The thing is that the car is running and you're putting wear and tear on the engine. And I find watch winders to be pretty much the same theory. You may not wear a watch for an automatic watch for a week, a month, 6 months, and you're going to have it winding in this box. So it's running, so it has no downtime. So you might subject your watch to all those. You're subjecting it. It's running. A watch that's running is being subjected to wear and tear. There's always going to be, even though there's jewels and fine watches, or there's a correct amount of lubrication, so there shouldn't be a lot of wear and tear. But there's going to be some degree of wear and tear on the watch as it's running. So what you're doing is, in effect, you're putting wear and tear on the watch without actually getting the benefits of using it. And that's all for me to save a little bit of time for the average individual who should know how to do this, is to take his watch and pull out the crown, or unscrew the crown and pull out the crown and reset the time on it. Doesn't seem to be that big of a deal to me. And you are saving a lot of wear and tear in your watch. As a matter of fact, I want to kind of expand that a little bit. Most watch companies also recommend on your automatic watch that you wind it. If you have it, put it down for a few days. Not all of the movements are made so that even though it's an automatic watch, you can wind it. So you can physically take the crown, put it into one of the positions, the pull-out positions, in the winding position, and wind it. Again, to me, you're putting unnecessary strain on the stem and on the crown of the watch, when really, once you pull it out and you set it, all you should have to do is shake the watch a few times, which is its normal operating capacity, is to wind the watch when there's movement. So what I tell everybody to do is don't wind it. Set the time, and shake, and give it a few shakes to get it started, or shake it first and then set the watch, and that's it, and be done, and you're done with it. I have found that more damage is done with people by their watches when they're winding it or setting it. I have more people come to me with crowns in their hands and stems that have been snapped off from winding in situations where there really was no reason to. Even if your watch was sitting for half a day or a full day and it's on time, but that the power, let's say you have a watch with what they call a power reserve, which has a power reserve. Watch has a little indicator. It tells you how much power is left on the mainspring, or how many hours you have left on the watch before it's going to run out. And people see that it's down. They only have a couple of hours left. So they take the crown and they start winding, and they see that. Well, to me, all you should be doing is just take it and shake it a few times until it builds up your reserve. Once you put it back on your wrist, it's going to be, after a few minutes, going to be fully wound anyway, just from the regular movement of your wrist. People do that. I've had so many people that ruined the inside of their watches in two ways: by winding it on their wrist, and you're putting undue pressure in a position on the crown in the stem and crown, which you really shouldn't on your wrist, because it's really meant to be straight out, not to have this like sideways pressure put on it. And I don't even want to tell you how many times I've seen watches that came in filled with water because they were screw down crowns, like on a Rolex and many other types of watches, where the crown has to be physically screwed back into place to keep it watertight and water resistant. And people either don't screw it in correctly or enough or improperly, or forget to screw it in altogether, which is very common. And then a watch like that is even less water resistant than a normal watch. It's like having a window open on a submarine. You have this large opening now that you submerge your hand in water, or you wash your hands, and now you're getting water in when you shouldn't have. And that's all because you're fooling around with a crown sometimes and opening and closing when you shouldn't have. The other thing, and I'll give you one last thing on watch winders, I used to, in my retail life, one of the popular items, because they were inexpensive, were jewelry boxes. And it's very nice, people have their jewelry in a nice, organized way. But I used to always say that I thought we were doing a little bit of a disservice, because they're kind of like packaging for criminals. If there was an incident, and let's not be naive, these things happen. And it was all nice and set up and nice little packaging for the people to walk out of your house with and have to go look any further. So your jewelry box, and this was it. And watch winders are kind of the same thing. It's kind of showing people. And remember, watch winders, yes, you can buy individual watch winders, but most watch winders are more than one, more made for more than one watch. Maybe it has one or two or three, mechanical winders, and then spaces for other watches as storage, so you can keep all your watches in one place. But again, you might be just kind of keeping it together so everybody knows where you're. Someone scrupulous, dastardly individual knows where all your watches are. One spot, doesn't have to look any further. So that's really it. I mean, I'll take any questions about that and comments. And it is a controversial topic sometimes, because, these watch winders, where they used to, when they first came out, were very expensive, but now you can get them on eBay for $25, $30. So why shouldn't I just spend that kind of money and have this for my watch, where I put it on and it's wound? But again, my big feeling on it's that you're putting undue wear and tear on a watch that doesn't necessarily need it for a few seconds of on your part to set the watch. So if you have any other any questions on this, any comments, any things about caring for your watches, again, general jewelry knowledge, keeping your watch clean, how and when to have it serviced, where it should be serviced, what kind of watch may be good for you, what's the best thing for your type of watch, what should you own, what are your purposes for this particular watch, buying a watch as a gift, value of your watch, which more importantly, people want to know I have this from my father, my brother, my sister, I bought this, what is it worth? That's what I'm here for. Have a good day, all.